Hi, this is Aaron for Tippy and Ricky. So in this video, we are going to check how to install Android Studio. So just take a Google and type on Android Studio download, and you would see a link where you can download Android Studio on SDK tools. Just click on that. So we get the page for downloading Android Studio. So here you can see the latest version of Android Studio download, which is a bundle that has IDE, SDK, and even JDK. Even the JDK required versions also installed if you don't have one. So you can download the Android Studio from this link. Before downloading, I just need you to check out the minimum and recommended system requirements for installing Android Studio. When it comes to Windows, you must have Windows 7 or later versions. Minimum 3 GB of RAM is required and 8 GB is recommended. 2 GB of available disk space, which 500 MB for the IDE and 1.5 GB for the Android SDK. So normally this size wouldn't be enough when you install all the versions of the Android from the Android SDK. So when it comes to Mac, you must have Mac OS Yosemite and the same RAM recommendations. Likewise in Linux also. So you just need 3 GB of minimum and 8 GB is recommended. 2 GB of disk space minimum. 4 GB is recommended. 500 MB for IDE and 1.5 plus GB for Android SDK. So you can download the Android Studio bundle, which contains the IDE, SDK, and it would install even the JDK if needed, if you don't have one.
So I have downloaded the Android Studio bundle. Just double clicking it. So you can see the dialog. So just click on run. You can see the installer loading in it. So once the installer is loaded, you can see a dialog on what components should be installed in this Android Studio. So you can see the license agreement here. You can just make a note of and select I agree. Then here comes a dialog on where the IDE should be installed and where the SDK should be installed. So this is the default folder for the SDK. You can see C:users, administrator, app data, local, Android, and SDK. So you can see all the files in this SDK folder. Just click on next. So this is where your Android Studio loads in your menu. So it is just extracting files from the exe file that needs to be installed. Actually, it takes some time. I have just fast forward the video. Once the files have been extracted, the Android Studio starts loading the start extracting the Android SDK. So it is above 4 GB, at least 4 GB of memory is needed to install the SDK. As you see, the extraction folder here is C: users, administrator, app data, local, and inside that local folder you can just check out the Android folder, and inside that Android folder you can see the SDK, and this SDK folder contains all the files that is required for different versions. You can download different versions, Android versions files from this SDK. So once the installation completes, I will let you know from where the different version files can be downloaded, both in both Android Studio as well as in Eclipse. So I would be adding the video for the Eclipse installation also. But the recommended IDE would be Android Studio. So you can, if you have a good configuration, you can just use the Android Studio installation. On clicking on next, you can just see a wizard to start Android Studio.
Here comes the splash screen of Android Studio. Once the splash screen is loaded, you can see the welcome screen of Android Studio. If you like this video, please do subscribe. This is Aaron for Tippy and Quickie. Bye. Have a nice day.